Okay, so making good progress. This second layer of fabric and glue has now set quite nicely, so this is now looking quite robust, and these are very held, these twines are firmly held in place. I've also taken the opportunity just to tighten these up, so basically all the boards are now sitting snug where they should do. So this book now has both boards reattached. I still have these few pages to still put in the front of the book, so that'll be a small task that I'll do shortly. But before we can start to think about the actual leather piece that goes here, I wanted to just share this guy. So on some of the other videos that are on the channel, you'll have seen me fashioning these cardboard shapes in order to enable the leather to be adhered to the book, but in a way that the leather's not directly down on the spine. And the main reason for that has been that if you glue leather directly down onto the spine, you just create a single point of pivot whenever you open or close the board, and that eventually leads to a fold and then a weakening and eventually a failure of the leather. So that's part of the reason why I've created this, but it's not the only reason. And to understand that, we need to actually look at the leather itself. So this is the leather I'm proposing to use. It's really gorgeous. I actually really like this piece. However, it's soft and quite a bit softer than the leather that has been on the other books where I've sort of used recycled bindings. And the reason that's a concern is if you were to not have a foundation like this and you were to attach this, let's assume for a moment that we're not gluing the leather down onto the spine. What's going to happen is when you flex the board, because it's soft, the leather's going to fold, increase as the book comes away, and it's just going to look very sort of limp and unattached. And so what we want to do is to actually make sure that the leather has sufficient structural foundation underneath, that in effect it looks stiffer than it really is. And that's what this is going to achieve for us as well. So I fashioned it in such a way that we're going around the sort of the bundles of twine that we've created on the boards itself. And obviously I've tried to avoid creating a really big hump over the raised bands. Now that does mean that the raised bands themselves are really not going to be that prominent when the leather's in place. And to be honest, I think I'm probably okay with that. I don't want to create sort of massive raised bands just for the sake of it. I mean, what we've done here is for a structural reason, so we could attach the boards. If we end up with what is a pretty smooth surface here with only a minimal showing through, that's probably okay. But the leather will at least have a really firm foundation on this card. In terms of the leather itself, so I was able to get this piece, which is really quite a nice size, but there were some offcuts as well. And the really good news is these offcuts are actually at least of a size where I can trim a label out of each of them for stamping purposes. So as we think about stamping, I'm seriously tempted to attempt to stamp the title of the book directly onto this piece of leather. Now that's really high risk. In simple terms, if I make a mistake on here, it's kind of done. But what this allows us to do is it gives us more chances. In simple terms, we can actually we can use these pieces for practice, although we could use any of the leather, I guess, for practice. And it means that we can actually trim labels out of this leather, and you know, if we make an error in theory, we can cover it, which would be useful for us as well. So the next step is going to be to fix this down into situ. As you'll know, I only glue it along these edges. I won't be gluing this surface down onto the text block itself. So this is complete. Nothing's going to be glued onto this now. So that'll be the next step, and then we'll get into the leather stamping, and we'll be practicing some different methods for that.